Coming to you live from Johannesburg, this is Tonight with Jane Dutton. Why is Malusi Gigaba being praised for resigning? His time was up. And where does this leave unity in the ANC? The quality of life in Gauteng is reportedly improving. We get to the good, the bad and the ugly with Premier David Makhura. And should South Africa be selling arms to rogue states? Saudi Arabia is one of Denel's biggest clients, and they are committing war crimes and human rights abuses in Yemen. That's Tonight with Jane Dutton. So is Cyril Ramaphosa really in charge? Malusi Gigaba's resignation brings back the question about his decisiveness or lack of. And in Gauteng, the quality of life has improved, but crime remains a big concern. And South Africa's footprint in the Yemeni war. Why are we selling weapons to countries like Saudi Arabia? Those are my questions tonight. What are yours? You can call us on 011-759-6344, 011-759-6340. Also use the hashtag Tonight with Jane Dutton. But first, Shahan has your news.
Thanks, Vuyo. Appreciate it. Our top stories tonight. Interviews for the post of National Director of Public Prosecutions took place in Pretoria. President Cyril Ramaphosa has a month to find a new NPA head after the Constitutional Court found Sean Abrams' appointment was invalid. One of the candidates who won't be interviewing for the top job is MP Glenys Breitenbach. She withdrew her candidacy, citing a political conflict of interest. The seasoned prosecutor was one of 12 people shortlisted. 11 candidates now remain, 5 of whom are being grilled today. In a break from tradition, President Ramaphosa appointed a special panel to find the best candidate.
The National Director should be someone who is fiercely independent and will prosecute without fear, favour or prejudice, who will right the wrongs in the NPA and do away with the toxic politicisation that has taken place there. While I have no doubt that I can do that, and that's the reason I accepted the nomination, having given the matter a lot of thought, I can't escape the perception that I'm a politician. And I'll bring that perception to that role if I would be appointed. I don't believe that's in the best interest of the National Prosecuting Authority. This isn't about individuals, it's about fixing a really vital state institution. And having seen that there are other really competent people on the list, made it much easier to withdraw, because if one of them is appointed, they can certainly do that job.
Residents in the West Rand might not have access to emergency services tonight. Municipal employees are protesting after not being paid their benefits last month. The municipality unlawfully invested with VBS Mutual Bank and has been placed under administration. A call has been made to Treasury to issue an emergency grant so payments can be made. The Gauteng Education MEC has been deployed to deal with workers' demands.
We brought in the National Treasury, we brought in the Provincial Treasury, we brought in the Provincial Cocta to make an assessment of your municipality. That assessment was supposed to take 21 days. We told those people we can't wait for 21 days, that they must conclude that assessment within 10 days. Today, I'm proud to report that I received that report of the assessment today. And that assessment paves the way for us as the provincial government to take over that municipality.
And Johannesburg Mayor Herman Mashaba is apologizing for comments he made about informal traders on social media. In a tweet, Mashaba slammed an informal trader who was transporting raw meat in the inner city. He says he didn't meet legal requirements for handling and transporting it. Mashaba further stated the meat could cause an Ebola outbreak. But his remarks caused outrage on social media. The mayor now says health inspectors will work with the formal and informal traders to ensure health and safety standards are adhered to. There'll be more news at 9. I'm back at 10 with News Hour. For now, it's back to Vuyo.
Thanks, Shahan. Well, remember when Malusi Gigaba said he is going nowhere? Well, just 10 days ago, the former Home Affairs Minister said he wanted to clear his name. But yesterday, guess what? He resigned.
I think a few media articles have been written calling for my resignation. Therefore, on the basis of this, I'm stepping down. I'm not going to do that, because if I did so, before I state my own side of the story, I table my version. In all of these processes, I have not been given an opportunity to state my side of the story, to present oral evidence, to provide proof as to my allegation that I did not give approval. So I'm not going to resign, but I will obviously be guided by my organization, the African National Congress, and by the president.
Well, he may not have stated his case as he wished, but the chairperson of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Themba Goti, says Malusi Gigaba is being used as a fall guy by the ANC.
And I think it was a good thing that he took the decision to resign, even though personally I think that the Fireblade saga goes a little beyond him. I think the ANC as a party does have some accounting to do in terms of its involvement and the role that it played in the whole thing. But I think with the Constitutional Court saying you are guilty, I think that was the end of the road.
So should Malusi Gigaba be recognized for his resignation? Well, courts ruled that he lied in Parliament about the Fireblade case that Themba Goti was talking about. And Public Protector Vuyo Mvoko said he violated the Executive Ethics Code and Parliament's Code of Conduct. But the presidency yesterday said that Gigaba had taken the pressure off the president by resigning. So was this the president taking action, or is Ramaphosa, who is also ANC president, glad that a difficult decision was perhaps made for him by somebody else? Well, to discuss this with me is ANC spokesperson Pule Mabe, political analysts, Professor Susan Booysen here in the studio, as well as Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, who will be joining us on Skype. Let's start with you, Mr. Mabe. If you can answer that question that I think for the past 24 hours people kept on asking. Why should Malusi Gigaba be recognized, as the ANC put it, for doing what he should be doing given his indiscretions, that is resigning?
No, thanks, Vuyo. Let me also greet your viewers. Comrade Malusi, having resigned as Minister of Home Affairs, took this decision upon himself so that he has got sufficient time divorced from the role that is expected to play in the executive to deal with some of the challenges that have arisen. You'll also know that coming out of the 54th National Conference of the ANC, we spoke firmly about the restoration of the values and the integrity of the African National Congress. So this is the kind of an organization that we now want to present out there. You'll also know that coming out of our own special session of the National Executive Committee, we did emphasize the pillars or things that should constitute our own program on unity and renewal. And we said that we should begin to be transparent, talk openly about things that could constitute challenges, do not place our own self-interest before those of the party, make sure that we always place the party and the country first before our own interest. And I think this is the kind of revolutionary gesture that we see being displayed by a cadre like Malusi Gigaba.
I don't know if you expect people to believe that on the back of Malusi Gigaba himself saying that there are people out to vilify him who want to thwart his political ambitions. I don't know why you would say that when Malusi didn't resign right at the beginning. If you remember, even at the time that the president appointed him to his cabinet, already questions were being asked at the time about him and about Batabile Dlamini, why President Ramaphosa would keep them. So what you're saying now just doesn't make sense purely on that basis. Before we go any further.
Well, but Vuyo, the fact that he has taken it upon himself to step aside, this now gives him an opportunity to deal with the challenges that have arisen.
But I put to you that he didn't do that. You heard what he was saying only a few days ago, that interview that we had with him. It doesn't sound like a guy who's taking it upon himself to do the right thing.
Well, having read the statement that he issued, I mean, we in the African National Congress always place it on the individual. I mean, having read the statement that he issued, him taking the country into his own confidence, that he has, having met with the president and having received wise counsel from the president, he had thought that stepping aside would be the best way of giving him an opportunity to be able to deal with the challenges without placing the country and his organization, the ANC, under constraint. And this, we really applaud him for that, because he took this out of his own volition. He said, I can't reduce myself to be bigger than the revolution. So he said, let me allow the ANC to continue on the trajectory of unity and renewal, to continue giving services to the mass of our people, and allow myself space to deal with challenges that could be out there in the public domain.
Professor Booysen, do you believe what Pule Mabe has just said?
Well, yeah, yes and no. Malusi Gigaba certainly was not intending to resign. And we heard about his meeting on Friday with the president, that he really wanted to persuade the president and then the ANC of fact that he has to stay. I think in his own mind he really, really wanted to stay, but he was not successful. I believe it, yes, in a sense that he was told, and this decision was, I believe, taken by President Ramaphosa with the ANC top structures, that pressure was there, he had to go because that was doing damage to the ANC. And of course it is to a factional ANC, two parts of the ANC that have to be held together. And that is where Cyril Ramaphosa really, he has the mandate from the ANC. His job there is to keep this ANC together, to keep it strong enough to go into an election and beat the opposition parties. And that kind of factionalism is so important. Alliance between factions, that is what the ANC is in many respects at this stage. And Malusi Gigaba had to acknowledge that he has to step down. He cannot be forced. I think the ANC could have forced him to step down if he had not volunteered to do so. Because three courts...
Did he really volunteer, Prof, on the basis of what you've just said? You have said that he demonstrated that he was not prepared to do it.
It was a forced stepping down. So it's not really voluntarism, but he did step down without being pushed out on a public stage.
Someone? Can you then heap praises on someone like that and say they did the right thing?
No, absolutely not. He could have taken it one step further, which would have been worse for the ANC had he absolutely resigned and had to be kicked out of there. That would have been worse. But it was no great deed. He stepped down at the last second under pressure, severe pressure, from all sides. And that is also the way we know Cyril Ramaphosa has been taking some of the decisions. He lets the courts take decisions. Sometimes opposition parties, EFF-DA, let them come into play, let social media and public opinion come into play. And Cyril Ramaphosa then let the decisions be taken in that way.
We're going to talk about that, actually, Prof, and whether it's a good or a bad thing. But I want us to go to Professor Maluleke, just for his thoughts about whether we should say Malusi Gigaba, you did very well. Thank you very much for putting the ANC and the country first. Is that what we should be saying, Prof?
No, I don't think we should be saying that. I think we should recognize his longevity in the cabinet. He's been in it for at least 14 years. And that's a long time for someone to be in cabinet. And he has been a member of the ANC NEC for quite a long time, actually. And a member of
Why is
Parliament.
that important to recognize, Prof?
Well, all I'm saying is that all we can recognize is the longevity of his stay there. I don't know that in and of itself is important. I think he is not resigning. I mean, his resignation is neither voluntary nor remorseful. I think he is being pushed, kicking and screaming. And I think it's a pity that he is missing an opportunity to be more remorseful about the circumstances that have brought him here.
But Prof, what then does that do? What does not showing remorse do to the very same message that he is trying to push through in the way that both he has put has put his resignation out there, but also in the way that the presidency has chosen to couch his resignation?
Well, there are a lot of contradictions in Malusi Gigaba's statements over the past, let's just say, 4 days. And a lot of contradictions between what he says and what he has done. I mean, if we stretch it back to 2 days, you'll see that this is a very contradictory resignation. And therefore, it's not, I think the presidency is trying to put a good feel on it when they say that he is taking the pressure off the presidency and that he's putting the ANC before himself. He has not sounded like that at all over the past few days. What is emerging is that the president, perhaps, it's too early to say there is a pattern because we have only seen Nene and Malusi Gigaba go this way. But clearly, there is some kind of method that the president is beginning to use with ministers who are accused of misconduct, over whom there is pressure from the public and from the party itself, that he suggests to them to leave before they are fired. It seems that is his modus operandi until now, the president.
But Pule Mabe, for people who have been observing how these things have been unfolding, especially over the past couple of years, what a situation like Malusi Gigaba is involved in now and the way he has sort of resigned from cabinet does is we've seen the former president, Jacob Zuma, for example, going out there addressing public meetings. One he did in Umtata, for example, saying, I'm still asking what it is that I did wrong, right? Because at no point did anyone from the ANC say to him, these are the reasons you have to leave. It's because you have done some wrong. So correctly, perhaps, he keeps on asking this question, what have I done wrong? Of course, we know. Those who have eyes would know why he had to go. But he does have a leg to stand on, doesn't he? And certainly, he makes sense to those people who didn't want him out or who stood to benefit from him continuing to stay on. And that is what this particular episode is also going to do, isn't it?
Well, I don't think so, Vuyo. One of the questions that have been coming out from yourselves in the media over the past few days have been that in the NEC, did you discuss the issue of Malusi? In the NEC, and I can tell you now that the issue of Malusi was never on the agenda of the National Executive Committee.
In the NEC, did you discuss the departure of Jacob Zuma?
Well, I wouldn't want to go back.
But why? Well, you see, that's why I wanted to illustrate this point, that if you did, and then he goes out of that meeting, for example, and says he still doesn't know why he had to go, then it creates a problem. Then it means that the ANC is creating problems for itself, but confusing the rest of us in the process.
Well, well, for the sake of this one, I can just put it on record, step off it, and deal with the issue that we were invited to attend to. Yes, the issue of former President Jacob Zuma was discussed by the National Executive Committee.
So why doesn't he know now why he did wrong?
I don't think that we should get into that issue. We have dealt with that issue sufficiently at a time when it arose. Safe to say that the issue before us now has got to do with the former Minister of Home Affairs in the person of Malusi. He took it up upon himself. And we must appreciate that. He took out a statement. And in his own statement, he says, I have had a meeting with the president, and following his wise counsel, and having considered all the issues at play, without necessarily admitting to have been guilty of this or that issue, I feel that I can't place myself to be much bigger than the revolution.
Okay, let's take a caller on the line. We have Rapelang from Roodepoort. Rapelang, what is your question, comment?
My question is very simple. If the committee did not discuss Malusi Gigaba's conduct, then I have a problem. You don't see anything wrong with his conduct.
We have a problem with that line. It's terrible. We can't really hear what Rapelang is trying to say. But Prof. Booysen, if I may come back to you, what does this scenario we're finding ourselves in, where even though, as you were saying earlier, Malusi Gigaba's hand was forced, but President Ramaphosa sort of left it to him or made him look like the big guy who actually did the right thing. Does that bode well going forward, given other people who may still have to fall on their sword, so to speak?
Well, it did not. Malusi Gigaba had publicly humiliated himself quite enough, and Cyril Ramaphosa's leadership style is not to go into that public humiliation phase. And he let Gigaba do it himself in that way. And so Gigaba could exit with some level of dignity, and heaven forbids, but the possibility is even there that he could come back in 5 years down the line, having preserved some relationships with the ANC. And so I think Ramaphosa in that way probably gave that kind of opening, at least an interim white flag to people who are still going to fall on their swords, to say, look, I did not humiliate this person. We gave this person that space to do it. We all know it has pretty little to do with any revolution to go in there and to resign after so much public disgrace. But it gave that space to the individual to build this kind of pretend as to what his resignation was about.
Professor Maluleke, could there be unintended consequences in how President Ramaphosa tends to approach these things?
Well, the unintended consequence that is most obvious is people misunderstanding him for someone who is too weak to take a decision, something that we have had repeated several times since his tenure started in February. I happen to think that that reading of him is wrong-headed, and I think that it is mistaken. I think that he is a lot more capable of taking decisions than he has been given credit for, and that indications of this are that both Ntantane and Malusi Gigaba did not resign voluntarily. I think he had a conversation with them and suggested it to them. And this is his style. I mean, the effect is the same. The result is the same. But I think South Africans are too used to a president who parades his power of appointment and disappointment, as it were. A president who reshuffles and reshuffles in a spectacular manner. It doesn't look like Ramaphosa is that kind of president, but it doesn't mean that he should be misunderstood as a weakling, as some people have done.
Pule Mabe, in your view, over in the 10, 11 months that he has been president of the ANC, is it your sense that President Ramaphosa has managed to unite the ANC's warring faction? And I want you, warring factions rather, and I want you to locate that within the comments that Malusi Gigaba made in the run-up to his resignation, that there were people out to vilify him and destroy his political career.
Well, but Vuyo, I can assure you that the biggest obsession of the African National Congress over a period of time has been the Unity and Renewal project, to make sure that this is instilled, understood by all our structures, both in deeds and in action. Actually, the rollout of the Tumamina program, where we massively engage with our people on the ground, understand their problems, work with them towards finding solutions to those problems, is part of a way of making sure that the ANC reconnects with society in much bigger ways. But also the leadership of the ANC coming out of the 54th National Conference has said that cadres of the movement must be able to self-correct. They must introspect themselves, find it within themselves consciously to say, if I'm faced with serious allegations that might compromise the public standing of the party, I should be able to find it upon myself to do what is right, so that I do not constrain the hand of the party to then be dealing with all issues which could be placing the integrity of the ANC under question. And this is what we are seeing here. I know that perhaps basing it on what you are saying are the past or previous comments that Comrade Malusi would have made, it sort of creates a suspicion in your own media cycles to believe that this is a genuine stand. I can tell you that when we spoke to Comrade Malusi yesterday, he was in high spirit that what this now does, it now provides him with the space to be able to deal with these issues far removed from the public space, so that at the right time, he could be able to still come back and continue doing the work of the African National Congress. You'd also remember that Comrade Malusi continues to be a member of the National Executive Committee of the ANC and has placed his commitment on the work of the movement, even going into 2019 general elections.
Quickly, Prof, if we believe what Pule Mabe says, what do we make of a Supra Maumapilo taking the ANC to court? What do we make of the ANC's inability to hold rallies in places like the Eastern Cape, which are refusing, some regions, where some regions are in fact refusing to listen to or accept the authority of the provincial ANC leadership there?
It's a tightrope action, and Cyril Ramaphosa and his team are continuously gambling with what the image they're projecting of the ANC. I believe they've made progress in winning over and uniting to some extent the factions of the ANC, but there are serious enclaves out there that are not in the loop yet, and they can still do a lot of damage.
Okay, that's why we're going to leave it on this one. Still ahead, one-on-one with Gauteng Premier David Makhura. Don't go away.